Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Reesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Joe Rockey, serial entrepreneur and master salesman. Please enjoy Joe Rockey. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I am here with Joe Rockey, serial entrepreneur and master salesman. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, Mari. Yes, thank you.
I'm super excited to kind of dig into the creativity of sales. But before we get there, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Well, I do a lot, to say the least. What we do at Elite Business Conversation is we help businesses that are feeling the crunch and the restrictive pressure of seeing their revenues starting to decline. And I also help companies that just are fed up with a substandard culture that's not what they want it to be. And I also help business owners turn their business into what they want it the most, whether it be on a revenue side, a social impact side, or creating time for themselves. And a lot of them are just so frustrated, like they've put their whole life and soul into this, and it's not giving them what they want. I think that the easiest comparison I see a lot of these guys going through is very similar to people before they hit a divorce. Like, I put my whole life into this and it's breaking. Joe, come fix it. Well, I don't fix your marriage. I can't fix your company. And that's really what we do in a great nutshell. And that's what we help people do. And I do this in a lot of different ways. Long story short, if you're interested, reach out to us at elitebusinessconversations.com. We'll have a 10-minute chat, and then we'll see if we're a fit for each other. So that's what I do is I help fix business problems in a very big nutshell, specifically around business culture and revenue.
Nice. I imagine a ton of creativity shows up when you're solving problems and fixing things and helping people who are running businesses actually start running the business that they dreamed they could run. So in your mind or your world, what does it mean to you to be creative?
In my world, what I strive to do is to solve problems that aren't the same way that everyone else does it. To me, that's like the definition of creativity, because so much of the sales industry is rooted in the 60s and in doing it wrong. High pressure sales, you're forced to do it this way. The only way you get off the phone with me is if you buy something from me. Like, that is the remnant that has shadowed this industry forever, and the mass majority of people doing it right now are stuck in it. So I don't do that. I teach people how to get out of it and how to be successfully not living in that cloud of toxic. And that's what we do. And same with business culture side. So it's constantly, this was wrong. Let's find a creative way to do it. And whether we're talking about getting our product discovered so that people want to come find us, or once people are with us, how to make those interactions better and not robotic, but like we're actually getting something out of this. And then obviously the product itself, how do we make it stand out compared to our competitors and still be in a way where it's going to be profitable? Because if it's not profitable, the whole thing dies. So yes, creativity is constant. And, it's a great part of why my job is always different. There's always a new problem, and there's always a bias towards going something one way or the other. So my salespeople I help, they'll have a way that they came through, and they'll have parts of it that they want to adopt and keep, and parts of it that they want to just run through a wood chipper, which is fine as well. And what I do is I help basically craft a system for their salespeople that will keep what they want to keep, but ultimately make it work in a way that everyone is happy and not feeling icky and dirty after they're done with it. And that's what I do.
That's a plus. So how did you get into this? This doesn't seem like something you just kind of like one day wake up and you're like, this is what I'm going to do as an adult. Like, how did you find your way to this, where you are today?
Well, you're certainly right. So my first job when I was in high school was in sales.
Okay.
And I immediately fell in love with the commission lifestyle. And for those who don't know what it is, the commission lifestyle is you only get paid when you're successful, but you get paid a whole lot. And all of the work you do building up to that point may or may not turn into anything. It might be a giant waste of your time. And if you don't get the sale, it is by definition.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't in a spot where I was getting an hourly rate plus a commission. It was all or nothing. You get paid on success or not. And the long story short was, even though I would have plenty of times where I would do the sales and them not work, when they did connect, the amount of money that I made was just so much more than all of my peers around me. It was worth the blow ups and wasted time, which really aren't truly wasted time either, because you're learning from it and figuring out how to get better. Just because money didn't hit my account doesn't mean it wasn't always good. Hard to tell an 18-year-old version of myself that, but it's still the case. So long story short, all throughout college, except for the mandated internships I had, I chose commission options. And when I was coming out, I got a double major in accounting and finance. The recession hit, the last recession, which basically blamed banks and accountants and landlords. Those are the three people that fundamentally got blamed last time. And my industry was two of the three of them for my business. So I was like, we're getting people losing jobs. They're not bringing on new college recruits whenever they're kicking out guys with 30 years of experience. So the only thing that really was left for me to do was go into another sales position. And that's what I did. In that position, I came to the realization that every single one of these bosses I've had since I was 18 until I was 23 had no idea how to sell effectively. It was the 60s mode 101, high pressure, forcing people into stuff and their feelings be damned. You're doing what you want, get as much momentum as possible, because the car that brings the most momentum into the crash doesn't get hurt. Horrible way to live, but I was 23 and didn't know anything. So I eventually ended up leaving that industry altogether because I wanted to be able to control my product and the processes thereof. I created my first business at that point. That would have been 2011. Since then to now, I have created over 15 of my own, where I have owned at least 50% of them. I don't count the ones where I got brought into, but the ones that I have created from birth, there's been 15 of them. And all of them have been going around the simple fact that they work because I sell stuff. What the stuff was didn't really matter. But it was really during COVID, whenever Governor Wolf of our state of Pennsylvania decided to tell me that wasn't essential. Pennsylvania got shut down, the fifth hardest of this nation. And I wasn't able to do my other businesses, and I just got told they weren't relevant, which I knew was wrong, but it was a very hard thing to swallow. And essentially, I put so much energy into getting myself to survive. I started helping other people, because at the time, it was a bunch of pissed off business owners trying to find a way through it. And I started teaching people, this is how I did, this is how it works. And then the coaching element really came into fruition. And I've really been helping businesses since. And I think I'm getting more joy in helping build other people's businesses than I ever have with my own. Not to say I haven't built very successful things, I certainly have. But that's really how it came to pass. It was a mixture of being stuck in horrible sales rooms and not wanting to repeat those. So I created my own business. And then being told that I didn't matter by someone who's never met me or know what my business does. You put those two things together, and that's where the coaching element and elite business conversations really got born.
Nice. I love it. I mean, so much creativity and the ability to be flexible and pivot and look at challenging situations in new ways. I mean, that is essentially creativity, flexing creativity all the time. I'm so curious, you've mentioned a lot of the like 60s sales 101. What is the biggest difference between that and what you do?
Fundamentally, the way that it was didn't care about the other person, didn't care about the client.
Mm-hmm.
My entire process is making a connection with the client, making a connection with every person involved that is building people up. This is why I know and I believe that salespeople will heal the world when sales is done correctly. Because the mentality from the 60s is the money that I'm receiving from the client is more important than what I'm giving them. There has to be a winner in this transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that's not the case. I'm giving something of value. I'm getting equal value in return. And it doesn't matter which side of the resource is giving the cash or getting the product. It should be equal, and we build each other up through that. And all of the macro problems that we get told daily are taking down this country get taken away when you are doing aggressive equal transactions, because your company needs the resource of revenue just as much as they need your product. And who they are doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter their age, gender, whatever. Go through the whole list of things we get told are wrong. It doesn't matter. The company needs it and they need our product, and the salespeople are the healing bridge between the two. And that's why salespeople will heal the world. This is why I am passionate about doing this. I know that every person who implements this, makes their individual life better as a salesperson. You're more successful and you feel better doing it. But so does every single client that you interact with. And then it just has a ripple effect that is unimaginable. Just you having a happier day translates to your kids, which just bubbles out to their friends, your friends. You have no idea. It just can really take an entire community and make it better by fixing how 3 people in that community sell. It's remarkable how much of an effect this has.
I love that shift from it's about the financial gain to it's about the person and the human and the reciprocity or the equal exchange that you're getting between the sales person and the recipient or buyer of it. Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Working in a helping field, I get that.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense that focusing on the other person, as a human, would be more beneficial. I'm now working in sales and working with many different types of businesses, I imagine. What are some of the kind of more creative challenges that you have come up against? And then how do you solve these challenges?
Well, one of the universal challenges that exists now are how can we make a connection through the internet? Because so many people have realized that I don't want to go and deal with a person. For some reason, it's just, I just don't want to be around people, and Amazon has things land on my door, which is nice. I get that. I have not been in a mall since I was in high school. I totally understand that. But there's a disconnect that people become naturally unwary, especially as we get to more important, not necessarily more expensive, but more important purchases in the individual's life. They want to have someone that they can relate to and communicate with. And the challenge is how can I have a competitive internet-based product and actually make it be relatable and connect to people in that capacity? Because especially if it's not a one-off product, like an engagement ring, that's a one-off product. But if it's something you need regularly, like Doritos, you're going to have a connection, or else they're going to go choose someone else's chips.
Sure.
And the connection is what brings people back. And while you can have a one-time big commission because you rammed it through, your long-run prospects are done. So how do we overcome that in an industry that has like no sexiness to it? Like when we're selling copper, who cares? I mean, like there's 6 builders, they're buying the screws that are Home Depot. Why should they pick you? That was a very intense problem. Because we're not in the major chain. We're not in Lowe's or Home Depot, but it's a very good product. How can we get people to do it? So those are kind of types of challenges that we've overcome and made, really some great progress with.
Nice. I mean, it just sounds like you are navigating challenge after challenge after challenge. What is it like? Do you feel like you get to a point where the challenges don't feel like challenges? They just feel like, I don't know, for lack of a better phrase, opportunities to.
Well, yeah, I mean, all of them are an opportunity. There's no way around that. I don't get called in until there's a problem. Let's start with that. I don't get called in for happy, at least on the initial conversation. Something is bad. Maybe it's burning, maybe something's imploding. So they're all an opportunity. And it really comes back to starting with, what are we trying to accomplish here? Is the goal for us to make an impact? Is the goal for us to just get this thing cash floating afloat so everyone gets a paycheck on Friday? Or is the goal to make it so there's less of me, the business owner, here? So all of those that's the starting point, which then guides how do we address the problem. And every business has this fundamental bloat problem that they don't like addressing, but it needs addressed. At the end of the day, every business on this planet is only a sales machine. That's all it is. And a sales machine has 3 parts. People need to know your bakery exists, and they have to have a desire to check it out. When they are at your bakery, they feel comfortable enough to give you money in exchange for a promise of bread. And 3, your bread has to be awesome. Most people can only do, especially business owners, only focus on my bread is awesome. And they totally neglect the first 2. What then happens after they neglect the first 2 and they realize things aren't working, they then, instead of addressing the real problem, one of those 2 issues is bad, they start making other side projects that don't really do anything except add overhead. And there are some of these things that are legally required, like in the HR world, but a lot of them are just other people giving you opinions that don't matter towards your revenue thing to hold you back. And that's a lot of parsing through that head trash, that inaccurate information, and getting to your company's root of how are we going to be successful? What does success look like for us? Because that's another thing. Every person has different version of success. You can just go through the 3 options. If I want to have a big social impact, maybe you don't care as much about the amount of profit that you made at the end of the year. If you want to just have massive amount of time, well, then maybe I don't care if it's necessarily changing the hearts and minds of the nation. I get to live on a beach, and that's what I want to do. So it really comes down to what is the desire for the company, and then therefore how can we make it work more efficiently for everyone involved?
Makes a lot of sense. Well, now I'm super curious about you and your experience of creativity and what your earliest memory of being creative is.
I don't know if this is exactly the answer, but I remember being in 2nd grade and having the observation that where people's natural smile line was, below that, like on their top teeth, below that, their teeth were whiter than above that. And I remember thinking that, and literally a year and a half later, the UV teeth whitening thing became national across the country. So I was in 2nd grade. I distinctly remember that. So I look at that as definitely realizing that was a big deal. And then also basically becoming disenfranchised with the entire educational system that kept telling me that was a stupid idea, stop thinking like that. And then next thing I know, I basically build businesses because of ideas like that. So, at the end of the day, who was right?
Nice. No, I love that. I mean, what a distinct memory of having that observation and having this idea and thinking, well, we should do something about it, or seeing a problem, or seeing something that you thought, oh, we could do something about it. At, what are you, 8 in 2nd grade?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. I love hearing these stories because everyone has such a different experience of kind of those early creative memories. And you can really directly see that line between 8-year-old Joe and now what you do today.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing.
Well, thank you. I really haven't had thought about that in forever, but yeah, that's certainly. I don't know if it's like I said. I don't know if it was the first one, but it's the first one that came to mind.
But yeah, we don't need to know the first one, but something that impacted you clearly, that stuck with you into adulthood, I think. I mean, creativity is amazing in that way, that it can come back to us, even if, we may have experienced creativity as a child and then at some point been told, oh, you're not creative, oh, you can't do that. But that drive or that belief in yourself of like, no, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do it, to definitely hear how that shows up in adulthood, I think it's fantastic. Now, because you work with so many people, and I'm kind of curious about your thoughts on this, like coming into contact with people who don't believe they're creative, or who had someone tell them, no, you're not creative, and now you're coming in to help them find some creativity by solving some problems. How would you encourage others to find that creativity in their life?
Well, the way I do it is this. I guess this is the best, because I don't know how I teach someone this. I can just tell you what I do and see if that makes sense. I look at the problem and start with, why are we doing it this way? And the vast majority of the time I get the worst answer in the world, but it's the truth, because this is how we always did it. And if you don't know why you didn't do it, and it's clearly not successful, or else I wouldn't be here, why are we doing it? And then just basically opening up that creek of looking at the problem, like, we're allowed to address this now, people. Like, just because this is how the old boss did it doesn't mean this is how we need to do it. And just looking at it from as many perspectives as possible. And it's going through that process as often as possible with, why are we looking at this? Why is this important? Is this significant? Starting point, is this significant? And if it's not, get rid of it. Really has been the opening up channel. The other thing that I do to help companies get their creativity going is to flat out allow more people to be innovative. So many companies don't do that. They want you to be in this box, do it this way, whether or not it's the best fit for you as an individual or not. And figuring out ways to correctly make sure that that person is still staying within the parameters of what they need to do. Like, the job needs to still do this task, that part doesn't change, but allow them to have flexibility to be innovative themselves, and then have an incentive to do so, is how you create innovation within a company. It's really opens up possibilities that most people would never explore or think of, because they're stuck doing it in the same mold. I have a very clear and rigid job description. I pay you this much per hour, and if you don't do it, I yell at you. Well, there's no real opportunity for innovation, let alone incentive to do it. And that's how I help people get past, why is my business not working? And why is my business culture like disastrous? This is the origin of it. You have people that are in positions that they don't want to be in, and they're not getting fulfilled from them. And then that negativity is oozing out all over the place. Well, it's not really complicated to see why. And it happens everywhere. But because it happens everywhere, people are okay with it.
Okay. Because it's that familiarity. It's always been this way. It can continue. Yeah,
that's exactly it. And it doesn't mean it's okay. There's certainly successful ways you can make it work, but it requires buy-in from the ownership level down. And that's really the key part to it. And that's, like I said, on the business culture side, that's how I teach people, and that's how creativity flows. You get answers from people that you didn't even think was relevant to your business, and next thing you know, we're now 20% better off, and we can measurably market, and we never would have had this idea before. So there's a lot to this. I mean, I'm going through it quickly, but there's a lot to teaching people on how to do this, that to make it implement and stay and become concrete in your company. There's a lot to it, but like I said, it's incredibly worth it for people who are going through it. And you can see people getting what they want on the other side. So that's what matters, right?
Yeah, I love it. And I really appreciate you saying that it does have to come from that top, that ownership down, because if there isn't buy-in with it there, no change will happen.
No, not really. No,
Yeah.
and for people who've watched the show Bar Rescue, I mean, I've been doing this so long, I can tell from the introduction, the first time they show the business owners, about whether or not they will implement what they're told to do. And literally, like, I think I've only been wrong twice in the 8 seasons of that show, because it is that person going to be willing to accept doing things differently?
Yeah.
Or are they only here to be told what they want to hear? And with so many people, because this is their creation, this is their baby, if you address it in a way that isn't completely flowery to them, they won't implement it because it wasn't their idea. They're not going to do it, and they'd rather literally sink in their own ship. And I don't deal with that, because A, it's a waste of everyone's time and it's not effective. So part of the reason I tell people we're going to have a 10-minute chat when we first meet each other to see if we're a good fit is because if you're that, I'm not wasting my time with you, and you're not worth my time. Because that's the other part that comes from being in sales. Because we're giving equal transactions apart, we get to choose who to do it with. And as we raise our bar up in terms of all levels, inherently we require everyone around us to step their game up to be with us. It's a subtle thing, but it's a true thing. We've all seen vortexes of negativity that has destroyed areas. I mean, Detroit still hasn't rebuilt, but we have all seen areas like this place was vacant. It was wasted land, and now it's like the place I want to be. I mean, that's basically what Vegas is, in a macro building standpoint. And the same thing is true with individuals. Most people will go the direction that they have to go. Very few people will go against the stream because it's better for them. But if the society allows them to just lay out, do nothing, and just take, there's a percentage of people that will do that no matter what. But there's the vast majority that will just go the direction they're pushed. Like if you put magnet over a big thing of pins that are on the ground, most of them are going to come up to the magnet. A couple of them will stay in the rug, but most of them will come up.
Yeah.
The way it is. So if you're able to elevate everyone and be the magnet to pull them up, you help everyone. And it requires creativity to do that. There's no way around it.
Totally does. Oh my goodness. Well, this has been such a delightful chat with sales and business and creativity. I have one last question for you. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
Smiling. That tends to be the byproduct end result.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. That's awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. If people want to learn more about what you do, where they can get in touch with you, how they can find you, how could they go about doing that?
Well, as I said, the best way is come to the website. It's elitebusinessconversations.com. And then on there, you will see the easy clickable access to set up a 10-minute chat with either myself or a member of the team to see if we will be a good fit. And also, depending upon when the individual listener is listening to this, you will be able to find the discounted copy of my newest bestseller on there, which will be there available for everyone as well. So, like I said, Elite Business Conversations is the hub. Come to find anything about us, and we can go from there.
Awesome. Well, I'll put that in show notes. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me about creativity and business and sales. It's been a super treat.
I'm glad you had it. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.